In 1918, a US ship serving during the First World War would disappear with no hint or suggestion as to what happened. So sudden was the disappearance that not even an SOS call was sent out. With reports of a demoralised crew suffering at the hands of a strict captain, a cargo the crew was not used to carrying, enemy submarines on the prowl, what exactly happened to the USS Cyclops? An enduring mystery that claimed the lives of hundreds of men. Tonight, we venture out into the Bermuda Triangle, trying to piece together what befell this collier as it traversed the Atlantic. Brace yourselves for storming seas as we step into the unknown. Launched in the spring of May 1910, Cyclops was built by William Cramp and Sons of Philadelphia. As is the case with many transport ships throughout history, Cyclops was huge, at least relative to the time, 542 feet long and some 65 feet wide. Capable of carrying a vast amount of coal whilst maintaining a decent speed, you probably couldn't have wished for a better collier, or even ship. Serving the Atlantic fleet of the Naval Auxiliary Service, Cyclops made voyages as far as the Baltics, and frequently ran up and down the east coast of the United States, even delivering coal to ships during the Battle of Veracruz. Due to being a ship in the Atlantic Fleet and, in some aspect, a warship, Cyclops was commissioned into service following the US joining the First World War. She would dare crossings across the Atlantic and up and down the coast, eventually finding her way to Brazil and ruin. In order to support the war effort in the Americas, Cyclops was tasked with running shy of 10,000 tons of coal to warships in Brazil and returning with around 11,000 tons of manganese, a critical ore for the manufacture of steel and munitions. Cyclops departed Norfolk, Virginia in early January 1918 and arrived in Rio a few weeks later on the 28th of January. Docked for a further 2 weeks before departing Rio on a southerly heading. At the time of departure, or just before, the captain reported damage to one of the ship's engine cylinders. Once confirmed by a survey, Cyclops was recommended to return to the US for repairs. The first stop of the return journey was Bahia, in Brazil. After stopping here, the collier would turn north and head for Maryland. There were no more intended stops along this leg of the journey. We will explore her captain in more depth in a moment, but I should mention that Cyclops was under the command of Captain Worley. With a little over 300 aboard the ship when she departed Bahia, including Alfred Gottschalk, who was the Consul General in Rio at the time. Making way to Baltimore back in the States on the 22nd of February, she was expected to make it to Maryland only a few weeks later. The USS Cyclops would never make its way stateside again. Instead, the ship would dock in Barbados on the 3rd of March. As you might have guessed, this was completely unplanned. There was less than half the journey remaining when she departed Barbados the following day, and this would be the last sighting of the ship and all aboard. A month after her expected arrival in Baltimore, Cyclops would make front-page news across America in mid-April before officially being declared lost at sea on the 1st of June. This change in status also meant that those aboard the ship following the departure from Barbados were listed as deceased. At the time of writing this script, no evidence of the Cyclops has turned up. As you might expect, in the absence of concrete evidence, a multitude of theories and possibilities has arisen. Cyclops was traversing the infamous Bermuda Triangle. She might have been sunk by active German U-boats, or perhaps Mother Nature sunk the vessel in a fit of tempestuous rage. What can be agreed upon, in my opinion at least, is that her captain is an intrinsic part of this mystery, and, to some, might even be the key to what happened to her. As I alluded to earlier, and rather neatly segued into, Captain George W. Worley is a crucial part of the Cyclops story. With a name such as this, you would be forgiven for thinking that Worley was born and bred American, or perhaps born among one of the many colonies and states ruled by the British Empire. Instead, following an investigation by the Office of Naval Intelligence, it was discovered that Worley was actually Johann Friedrich Wichmann of Hanover, Germany. For ease and to avoid any confusion, I will continue to refer to this man as Worley. After arriving in the US by way of San Francisco, he would work his way up to the rank of Lieutenant Commander by the time he took command of Cyclops. Not only is his identity intriguing, perhaps lending it to some theories we will touch up on soon, it is perhaps his personality and strict discipline that sets this man apart from others. Every source I have looked at in the writing of this script mentions how Worley was borderline hated by those beneath him. It seems that Worley would come down harshly on minor infractions and offences on his ships, be they carried out by fellow officers or seamen, with some reports that these confrontations turned physical. One story, though only available by the most unreliable of sources, tells that Worley chased a crewman with a drawn pistol. However true that story might be, he clearly left enough of an impression whilst docked in Barbados for the US consul on the island to report of a toxic command. Despite working under a hard captain and persistent rumours following the ship's disappearance, there isn't much evidence to go off which would suggest a mutiny was in the offing or had occurred. Due to anti-German sentiment given the raging conflict at the time, it has also been put forward that Worley was pro-German and might have engaged in dialogue with the enemy. I don't think there's enough evidence, or at least from what I have seen, to possibly say conclusively one way or the other. Conrad Nervig, a sailor under his command that had transferred during the stop in Rio, described Worley as a gruff, eccentric salt of the old school, given to carrying a cane, but possessing few other cultural attainments. He was a very indifferent seaman and a poor, overly cautious navigator, unfriendly and taciturn. He was generally disliked by both his officers and men. Quite damning assessment if you ask me. This very conveniently leads us to the ranging theories on what actually happened to the USS Cyclops. Starting with the captain of the ship and his alleged German affiliation, it is purported that Worley might have been in league with the German Navy and managed to hand the ship over to their control in the Atlantic waters between Barbados and the US. It seems plausible to me, and I'm sure similar situations like this have occurred countless times throughout history. However, you would have to wonder what happened to everybody on board. No accounts of any sailor or passenger that left Barbados have ever been put forward, so either they were all whisked away to some secret place never to be heard from again, or the Germans executed them all. But those seem quite unlikely. Perhaps a more likely theory with German involvement is the sinking of the ship by an attack from U-boats operating in the area. More commonly associated with the devastating effects they had on the transatlantic convoys during the Second World War, U-boats were also a potent threat decades earlier. A torpedo attack sinking Allied shipping is possible, though the German Navy has always refuted the suggestion, along with taking ownership of the vessel. In light of the next theories, and this official declaration, the German side of this mystery is probably dead in the water. I hope you enjoyed that pun. The previous installments in the Ghosts of series on Unknown might lend themselves to a more mysterious bent or mutiny, but I think this mystery is largely down to extensive ship damage, the cargo, and possible gross negligence. As a collier, Cyclops was designed to carry coal in place of ore, especially one as tricky as manganese. With little to no experience transporting ore, notably manganese, it is possible that the cargo was not correctly stored on the ship, creating structural tension amidship as put forth by Conrad Nervig. This internal pressure, combined with the external pressure caused by the sea, could have snapped the ship in two so suddenly there would have been no time to deploy lifeboats or send out an SOS. Similarly, it is thought that due to how the manganese was stored, and with one of the two engines badly damaged and inoperable, the ship became very susceptible to further structural and mechanical damage or capsizing. Whether befouled by a storm or unknowingly taking on water, Cyclops, it would seem, very suddenly lost control of itself and sank. Two of her sister ships also strangely disappeared decades later whilst carrying cargoes of ore. I might come back with videos on Proteus and Nereus, but safe to say that with their mysterious ends with similar cargoes, something of a design or manufacturing flaw with that class of ship is likely. Those two ships, along with Cyclops, went missing in the fabled Bermuda Triangle. So of course, feel free to apply any range of well-known haunts of that area of sea, be they alien, Kraken, Cthulhu, or portal to another time and place. Let me know what theory you believe in most in the comments below. A misliked captain, damaged engine cylinder, poorly stored cargo, and design fault might have collectively culminated in one of the largest losses of life in a non-combat situation in the history of the US Navy. All hands lost at sea over a century ago, with no trace or shred of evidence of what truly happened to her, or where she might be lying in the dark depths of the Atlantic. Beneath the cold waves, it seems that the ghosts of the USS Cyclops will keep their secrets forever, and the mystery surrounding the ship will continue to be unknown.